Recently, during his first 3 years as Prime Minister, Stephen Harper was churlish with China and ignorant of India. And we need to get back on track with countries like China, India, and Brazil. And we need to redouble efforts to engage the next wave of emerging economies, countries like Colombia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Egypt, Turkey, and South Africa. Now, diversifying our trade relations and re-engaging the world on trade is just part of how Michael Ignatieff's Liberal government will reassert Canadian leadership in the world. In June, Michael Ignatieff launched our Liberal foreign policy platform, the Global Network Strategy. Our mission is to restore Canadian global leadership by harnessing our multicultural communities as natural bridges to some of the fastest growing economies in the world. Nearly 2 billion Canadians work and live outside of Canada at any given time. There are Canadian students studying abroad on every continent, and we need more Canadian students studying abroad and learning abroad. Now, Mr. Harper says that Michael Ignatieff is somehow less of a Canadian because he lived and worked outside of our borders. But when it comes to winning votes on things like the UN Security Council, I'd rather have a Prime Minister who has succeeded on the international stage and then come home with an understanding of the world than a Prime Minister who's never left Canada without a government jet and a motorcade. Now, in closing, Stephen Harper has made his choice. You know what that is. More prisons, more untendered contracts for fighter jets, and more tax breaks on borrowed money. Now, if you think that's a good choice for Canada, you can vote for it. But if you don't think that's good enough, if you want a more ambitious vision for Canada, there is an alternative. And we're giving Canadians a choice. A Michael Ignatieff Liberal government will rebuild human capital. We will help middle-class families. We will create the jobs of tomorrow. And we will restore Canada's role in the world. These are the priorities we will take to the Canadian people. Canada deserves better than a finance minister who can't add and a prime minister who can only divide. Michael Ignatieff will bring Canadians together with ideas for a brighter future and a renewed sense of pride in a stronger Canada. Together, we'll rebuild our economy